As you experience this service, we hope you'll learn to pay attention to your body.
If you have a white body, there will be times when it will reflexively constrict in order to protect you from some of the truths you'll encounter. When this occurs, just notice what you're experiencing without doing anything about it. Don't try to undo the constriction. Don't try to hold on to it. Just watch your body closely and notice what sensations, impulses, and emotions arise. Don't take the reflexive thoughts seriously either. Don't debate them. Just observe them as they arise.
If you have a black or other dark body, there will be times when your body will experience a sudden shock of recognition. This may be followed by a rush of energy in the form of joy or anger or outrage or a felt sense of clarity and rightness. Let yourself experience these sensations fully, but don't hang on to them. Let them move into and through your body like a wave. Then let them go.
May the flame of our chalice serve as a constant reminder for us all to watch our bodies this morning. Did you all know that your brain is made up of a bunch of different parts? The front part up here is what allows us to have language and memories and thoughts. The part back here, it's more like the brains of other animals, lots of other kind of animals, and so sometimes it gets called the lizard brain. There's a lizard. It lives right back there in our brains. Now, most animals, like this lizard, don't really think about how they're going to respond. Rather, they respond instinctually by doing something that helps them survive, by finding food to eat, running away, making friends, or freezing totally still, or fighting off something dangerous. So we have this little lizard inside our brain. And it looks at all the information our bodies take in. And if it decides that something is really dangerous, it makes us try to fight, flee, befriend, or freeze in fear before our thinking brain even really has a chance to think about what happened. Sometimes that lizard gets it wrong, and we feel scared about something that actually isn't all that scary. People may try to tell you not to be scared, but that lizard isn't listening. It's making us be scared anyway. So we're going to teach you some tools right now to help tame your lizard. Actually, we've done some of them already today because singing is one wonderful way to calm down your lizard brain. Humming a song even can help. You don't have to sing out loud. You can just hum. And it can help you settle. It can help you feel so much better. Now, this one I actually sort of gave away earlier when I started to hum, because this technique is a sway, just a rocking back and forth. And think about this lizard. Right? It's back there. It's so scared. It's so scared. And we're just going to rock it. We're just going to rock it, swaying our body back and forth. We'll rock that lizard until it feels safe. And it goes really well with a hum, which is why I started swaying earlier.
When I was a boy, I used to watch television with my grandmother. I would sit in the middle of the sofa and she would stretch out over 2 seats, resting her legs in my lap. She often felt pain in her hands, and she'd ask me to rub mine in hers. When I did, her fingers would relax and she'd smile. Sometimes she'd start to hum melodically, and her voice would make a vibration that reminded me of a cat's purr. She wasn't a large woman, but her hands were surprisingly stout, with broad fingers and thick pads below each thumb. One day I asked her, "Grandma, why are your hands like that? They aren't the same as mine." My grandmother turned from the television and looked at me. "Boy," she said slowly, "that's from picking cotton. They've been that way since long before I was your age. I started working in the field sharecropping when I was 4. The cotton plant has pointed burrs in it. When you reach your hand in, the burrs rip it up. When I first started picking, my hands were all torn and bloody. When I got older, they got thicker and thicker until I could reach in and pull out the cotton without them bleeding. My grandmother died last year. Sometimes I can still feel her warm, thick hands in mine."
Before we get started with the rest of our service today, which, like the reading just now, is taken almost entirely from Resmaa Menakem's book, I want to be clear that the settling tools we taught you earlier are for you today. Use them as you need throughout the service to help you stay present in your body, feeling the feelings that come up, noticing the thoughts, but staying present with Menakem's words. As we said in our chalice lighting, watch your body. If you start to drift off, use a hum or a shake or your breath to bring you back, right here and now, so we can take this journey into our history and back again today. We've even built some of these opportunities into the service. After some particularly heavy stuff, we'll return to the song we've already sung this morning to help us integrate and settle our bodies together. With this in mind, we begin our reading. While people from England, Spain, Portugal, France, Scotland, Sweden, and Holland had all colonized parts of America by the late 1600s, it was the English who controlled nearly all the colonized territories in what would become the United States in 1776. The 1500s and 1600s in England were anything but gentle times.
People were routinely burned at the stake for heresy, a practice that began in the 12th century and continued through 1612. Torture was an official instrument of the English government until 1640. During much of the Middle Ages in England, torture wasn't just wildly popular, it was a spectator sport. In her book, A Distant Mirror, Barbara Tuchman offers this parallel description of everyday life in medieval England. Tortures and punishments of civil justice customarily cut off hands and ears, racked, burned, flayed, and pulled apart people's bodies. In everyday life, passers-by saw some criminal flogged with a knotted rope or chained upright in an iron collar. They passed corpses hanging on the gibbet, and decapitated heads and quartered bodies impaled on stakes on the city walls.
For all their talk of the New Jerusalem, the Pilgrims and Puritans were not explorers. They were refugees fleeing imprisonment, torture, and mutilation. In England, one Puritan writer, William Pern, had his ears cut off and his forehead branded, burned with a red-hot iron with the letters SL, which stood for seditious libeler. Another Puritan, John Lilburne, was flogged with the whip, dragged by an ox cart through London, and forced into a pillory. Others had their noses split and their tongues born with hot irons. In post-traumatic slave syndrome, Joy DeGer asked, isn't it likely that many slaves were severely traumatized? Furthermore, did the trauma and the effects of such horrific abuse end with the abolition of slavery?
We need to ask these same questions about the colonists who made their way to America. Isn't it likely that many of them were traumatized by the time they got here? Did over centuries of medieval brutality, which was inflicted on white bodies by other white bodies, begin to look like culture? Did this intergenerational trauma and its effects end with European immigrants' arrival to the New World? The trauma that now lives in the bodies of so many African Americans did not begin when those bodies first encountered white ones. This trauma can be traced back much further, through generation upon generation of white bodies, to medieval Europe.
For America to outgrow the bondage of white body supremacy, white Americans need to imagine themselves in black bodies and experience what those bodies had to endure. They also need to do the same with the bodies of their own white ancestors. And they need to ask themselves this question: if we don't address our ancient historical trauma, what will we pass down to our children and to their children and grandchildren?
This picture was taken in 1919 at a lynching of a black man. I've cropped out the truly horrific parts of this image, but you can see the glow from the victim's burning body in the left corner. The horror is just out of view, but these men had crowded around to be pictured with it. The young boy on the right is looking at the dead man's body. Look at the expressions on their faces.
Menakem tells us in 1920, lynching was not an aberration. It was a fairly common practice. For some white people, it was a celebratory event, like fireworks on the 4th of July. White body supremacy alone does not explain the popularity of lynching. Neither does the idea that white people then were somehow fundamentally different from white people or people of color today. This is a dodge. Many of us use it to flee from our own pain around lynching. I urge you not to fall into this trap.
The white people posing in the photograph were born with human bodies, just like yours and mine. They had the same physical, mental, and spiritual wiring you and I do. But something happened to them, and to their ancestors. That something enabled them to override the human body's normal reaction of shock, horror, terror, and disgust.
What happened to the men in the lynching photo, and to many, many other men and women like them, was a deep and persistent trauma. This trauma got transmitted and compounded through multiple generations. Eventually, it began to look like culture.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know, 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 I know.
So we're going to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, home of the Oglala Sioux tribe of Native Americans in tiny Wanblee, South Dakota. Population 725 people. 14 people in this entire town in the reservation are white. I think we're gonna meet all 14 of them. This is the Crazy Horse School. It goes from kindergarten through 12th grade.
Good.
I'm looking for Sam.
Hey, her kids should be coming up for lunch.
Oh, okay, great. Every single one of the 260 students here is Native American, but most of their teachers are white.
All right, guys, this is Jose. Hi.
Hi.
All right. I grew up in San Diego, predominantly white, where I was raised, and this is definitely a different environment to be wearing this color skin.
So what I want you to do at this point is I want you to pull out your journal. I grew up in West Fargo in North Dakota. It's a very white town.
How did your parents talk to you about race?
It just wasn't really something that was discussed like it is here.
You know, I'm wondering, all the students are natives, right? A lot of the teachers here are white. Like, how does that work out?
It can be a little weird whenever you first meet them because, like, you know, they're outsiders. And along the way, it's like they become a part of the school and they become part of, like, our family here.
What was the moment that you realized that you were, quote unquote, white?
Here in this place,
Is it by the way
instantaneously.
the kids-
I think, like,
Oh, how?
I think some of it, like, walking in to the store. Like, they have these small conveniences. Walking into the store for the first time and you're like, wait, I'm the only white person in here. I never had to, like, I've never felt that.
I have never felt like I was treated badly because of that.
Yeah, more of just
Curiosity.
Curiosity.
What does it mean to be white in an Indian reservation?
We've never had to internalize what white people have done in America, but here, you can't escape that.
Wanblee is near Wounded Knee, South Dakota, the site of one of America's darkest days. Simply put, in 1890, white soldiers slaughtered hundreds of Lakota men, women, and children as part of America's centuries-long history of atrocities against Native people.
What is this experience like for you all being in a U.S. history classroom being taught by a white teacher?
They always talk about the good things white people did in their history. What about the bad things when they try to get rid of us?
It should be all of U.S. history.
I think for the first time to, like, have an uncomfortable feeling inside because of history. When so often I would tell people to, like, when I was younger, I feel like as a majority you hear, like, you get over that, or like, that was the past, that wasn't me. But then when you're like the minority within a place where recently, like, there was that much oppression, you internalize that.
The theme for today is stereotypes. You're gonna have 2 minutes to think of as many things that come to mind when you see the topic on the sheet of paper.
Oh, wow. Whites. So what do you think about when you think whites?
They're mean to us so much.
Here's the one about whites. A lot of things that I see on here are pretty negative.
All of them are negative. How does that feel when these young students see you as these things?
You know, it's something that I have to bring in here every single day. Just encountering it today, I think about, you know, one of my students who I said he couldn't go to the bathroom, and he says, you stole our land and you won't even let me go to the bathroom. You know? And while I know at the core he was joking, the skin color I wear allows me to represent something a lot bigger than myself.
I did not know about this word, wasichu.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently it means, what again? It means?
He who takes the best meat.
Like greedy.
To come in, be greedy, take what you want. What is a washichu?
A greedy white person.
But Anisha, you say it's just a synonym for a white person?
Yeah, it's the only way people use it, is just to describe white people.
I've never felt attacked by that word, but just like what it means and the fact that it exists is like, oh, rough.
I haven't felt like offended by it. I think the history is something that, like, okay, I get it.
So is Sam a wasichu?
Yeah. She's the most awesomest wasichu ever.
Yes.
I kind of don't like using the term.
Why not?
My dad raised me to not be really racist or anything. It wouldn't feel right to me.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
How do you say thank you in Lakota? Opila.
Bye.
See you.
Living out here has just really instilled within me just a very, very real sense of just how complex things are.
rose will open. I know my fear. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose. I know this rose. I know this rose.
Peace, peace. Proper education always corrects errors. Royal Star Law in Ashland, Oregon, with hip-hop artist MC Tonai. We just had a very black moment. Kokayi and Tonai were on the corner here in Ashland. I was reading to Tonai a document from 1956, and it was the grand jury finding to Dr. King, talking about how the white people in Montgomery wanted segregation. A white woman who was an elder came out and asked us what were we doing, and then told me that I needed to quiet down because this is her neighbor. Am I lying or am I not? That's happening live and in person. I know you guys believe you're progressive here in Ashland, but when it comes down to being treated like a white person, that's when the demons and the fragility and the trauma comes out. I literally told that woman that this is America, I can read an American document, and that she needed to return to her house, and I was not going to get killed because she went into her emotions. Peace.
When I first read My Grandmother's Hands by Resmaa Menakem, it felt revolutionary to me. Having trained as a midwife and worked in holistic health, I know that the body is where we do this human thing that we do, how important the body is. But Menakem's book still blew me away. As I rode the BART train from my aunt's house in San Francisco to Holy Hill in Berkeley for my first seminary class, I started watching my body. And I found, to my horror, but at that point not to my surprise, that when I found myself in close proximity to a black male body, I felt afraid. My breath got shallow, my heart beat faster, my body believed I was in danger. The lizard is no joke. I'm not sure it will ever be fully tamed, but I began to practice right then and there, on the BART, on the sidewalk. Yes, I see that black body coming toward me, and I'm safe. Deep breath in, deep breath out. I am safe. I'm settling my body. And I made progress. Progress that allows me to stop wasting time and energy on false fear. Progress that allowed me to really see other people as fellow humans because I stopped seeing them as potential threats. I wanted to use the song, I Know This Rose Will Open, for today's service because I believe it describes perfectly the truth that we can be better than we are. I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I can tame the lizard. I can respond with siblinghood toward my fellow humans because I've learned to settle my body. You can too. Sometimes when I've preached on racial justice in the past, I've heard from my white siblings that it left them feeling bummed out. And I want to say to you, don't be bummed out today. You have the power to use these tools to burn away that fear so that the rose that is your heart may open and your soul may unfurl its wings. Let's sing together now.
I know this rose will open. I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this rose will open. I know, 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 I know this rose, I know this rose, I know my my fear, I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this road, I know this road, I know this road, I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. Will unfurl its wings. I know this road, I know this road, I know this road, I know my fear, I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this road, I know this road, I know this road, I know my fear, I know my fear, I know my soul will unfurl my soul will unfurl its wings. I know this road, I know this road, I know this road, I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. Will unfurl its wings. I know this road, I know this road, I know this road, I know my fear will burn away. I know my soul will unfurl its wings. Will unfurl its wings. I know this road, I open this road, open, open, fear will open, open, soul will unfurl its wings. I know this road will open.
Healing trauma involves recognizing, accepting, and moving through pain, clean pain. It often means facing what you don't want to face, what you have been reflexively avoiding or fleeing, but walking into that pain, experiencing it fully, and moving through it, you metabolize it and put an end to it. In the process, you also grow, create more room in your nervous system for flow and coherence, and you build your capacity for further growth. Clean pain is about choosing integrity over fear. It is about letting go of what is familiar but harmful, finding the best parts of yourself and making a leap with no guarantees of safety or praise. This healing does not happen in your head. It happens in your body. And it is more likely to happen in a body that can stay settled in the midst of conflict and uncertainty.
When you come out the other side of this process, you will experience more than just relief. Your body will feel more settled and present. There will be a little more freedom in it and more room to move. You will experience a sense of flow. The alternative paths of avoidance, blame, and denial are paved with dirty pain. When people respond from their most wounded parts and choose dirty pain, they only create more of it, both for themselves and for other people.
May the flame of this chalice endure in our hearts, so that our fear may burn away.